of Bullying Prevention Month, Healthier Generation is excited to host this 30-minute conversation in partnership with our friends at Kohl's. And so today we're going to feature three voices working on the front lines of youth development. So hopefully you can see my friends and everybody wave. David Anderson goes by Anderson from Think Together. We have Diana Fernandez, a youth representative from the National Children's Campaign, and Kiera Battle from our friends at America's Promise Alliance. So excited that you're here today. And like I said, today's event is possible because of generous support from Kohl's. So the first thing we're going to do today is I'm going to turn it over to Malcolm Gaspard, VP of Loss Prevention and Group Leader for Kohl's Black Professional Resource Group, to say a few words. So over to you, Malcolm. And I can't hear you, Malcolm.
There we go. Now you can hear me.
I can hear you.
All right. Thank you. I am so pleased to be here today. So on the behalf of Kohl's, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining today's conversation. At Kohl's, we are committed to family health and wellness, and we know that mental health plays a big role in overall well-being. The impacts of COVID-19 have presented a new set of challenges for youth, parents, and family. That's why we, with Alliance for Healthier Generation, create Kohl's Healthy at Home, a program designed to equitably improve the physical and emotional well-being of children and families through critical programming and easy-to-use evidence-based resources. Kohl's Healthy at Home encourages families to prioritize a healthy lifestyle in their home wherever their children live, learn, and play. After today's session, we hope you will visit www.healthiergeneration.org/feelinghealthyathome. I'll say that again, it's www.healthiergeneration.org/feelinghealthyathome for more resources to help you and your loved one. Thank you again for giving me a few minutes to chat, and I'll pass it back to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Malcolm. So glad you're here and very grateful for our partnership with Kohl's. So I appreciate everyone using the chat box today. So if you have used one of the Healthy at Home resources or you've heard of Healthy at Home, put a smiley face into the chat box. Thanks, Esther. Barbara. Hey, Penny, glad you're here too. Hi, Nicole, Tish, Yasmin. Excellent. I like to see all the smiley face emojis. That's what the world needs now. All right, so now we're going to jump into some intros from our guests. So each guest is going to take 2 minutes, tell us about themselves and a little bit about their organization. So David Anderson, who goes by Anderson, I'll toss it over to you for your 2-minute intro.
Oh, don't forget to unmute yourself.
A good way to start, huh? So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Mr. Gaspard, for your support and for being here and our amazing panelists and service and leadership. So yeah, my name is David Anderson. I generally go by Anderson as Daniel Hatcher. I want to say Hatcher prefaced. I serve as general manager at Think Together, and Think Together is a education nonprofit here in California, and we partner with about 40 school districts, and we provide wraparound services, academic support, enrichment, exposing the students to different careers, and we try our best. We connect with our school districts. We want to make it as seamless as possible in the after-school world, and this especially pre-COVID, where we're able to support the educational advancement directly connected with the teachers and district leadership. So we want our students to be able to learn. We have career training and different levels of exposure. My particular region is in Southeast LA County. So that's about 50,000 students. That's Compton, Linwood, and Bellflower school districts. So myself, I'm a change maker, social entrepreneur. My passion is to support those in need, leadership and create sustainable change. And we have an awesome system of support in California through the California Department of Education and our county offices, which allow us to create this sustainable change mind as a LA County Office of Education. So it's just an exciting time. While it's really scary, we're a very flexible field, and we're geared and prepared, and we have systems in place to support those that are most in need. And right now, like you said, it's really talking about wellness, and one of our values is youth voice and leadership. So I look forward to talking about wellness a little bit more.
Thank you, Anderson. Really appreciate you and the work that you do. I always love getting your morning meditation mindfulness tweet as well.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to toss it over to Diana Fernandez, a student representative with the National Children's Campaign.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Anderson, and everyone here listening from home, and all the panelists and Coles, of course, for sponsoring this panel. So I'm Diana Fernandez. As Daniel mentioned, I am a student in high school representing the National Children's Campaign, which is an organization that fights and tackles the issues that matter to America's 74 million children. Personally, I do a lot of work revolving around environmental justice and immigration, specifically because of my background. My parents came to this country from Cuba before I was born, so I consider myself Hispanic and Cuban American. And obviously these issues matter a lot to me and my community, but I also think that it's important to participate in conversations like the one that we're having today about inclusion and cooperation and self-esteem, because in challenging times like the pandemic that we're experiencing now, communities like mine and communities all around the world need all the support that they can get, and conversations like these are the first step. So thank you again for having me. I'm really excited to hear what you all have to say today.
Thank you so much, Diana. I'm so glad you're here. And we're Healthier Generation so grateful to the National Children's Campaign for connecting with us and bringing some amazing youth voice to today's conversation. So thank you for being here. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Kiera Battle at the America's Promise Alliance.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kiera Battle. I'm the Director of Youth Engagement at America's Promise Alliance, which is a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. And our whole mission is based around these 5 promises to young people, them being having caring adults, safe places, a healthy start, effective education, and opportunities to help others. And at America's Promise, we believe if young people have at least 4 of those promises playing in their life, it helps them on their road to being healthy, happy, and successful adults. And one of the really cool things about the work that I do over at APA is we work with over 400 different youth-focused nonprofits and organizations throughout the country. And I get the awesome opportunity to work with young people every day to make sure that we as an alliance are making sure that we are being caring adults and helping young people be in the positions that help their voices be heard, helping to connect them with awesome organizations such as this, and how we as adults can really help them through really any moment in life, but especially during this pandemic, and really thinking about how our work right now can be to support young people during COVID and everything that's happening in our country.
Thank you, Kiera. And I've told you this before, but I think you have one of the coolest jobs overseeing an amazing group of young people. So thank you for bringing that authenticity for how adults can partner with young people to this work in the conversation today. Happy to have you here. So hi, everyone. I'll introduce myself again. Daniel Hatcher, Director of Community Partnerships with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation. If you've just joined us, you'll see a few folks answering in the chat box. Would love to know your name, where you're from, and what brought you to today's conversation. But I'm about to pivot into our questions for today. And my first question is going to go to Anderson. So there's so many things happening at the moment impacting children's physical and mental health. How can we help young people feel connected to each other and us as adult allies? And would love any advice in what you're seeing, Anderson.
Sure. It's an awesome question, given the time. I'm going to answer this in two ways. So I think it's a pre-COVID and post-COVID because it allows us to understand our work and impact as a field. So pre-COVID, we're on the ground, working directly hand in hand, communicating with each other. Our students are communicating with each other. We get to high five and hug each other sometimes. And I would say that the mission was to get it done at the highest level. And we're always focused on youth voice and leadership and our staff and relationships and the academics and our workforce development, because fortunately we're in a field where we're able to support students and staff and support their trajectory to their future development, to support where their careers are going to be. Now, which I think is pivotal, because I don't believe that there's any other system of support that exists in the world that supports that out of school time, after school, expand learning, whatever you may call it in your different areas or organizations that support so many students and staff at the same time. So we might have a staff that say, oh, I'm studying biology, and now they're in the classroom teaching students. So now I'm going to teach them a softer version of biology to my first or second grader. And now I'm a biology student getting A's because I'm studying it and teaching it. But now a young child is learning biology from, a college level. So again, pre-COVID, it's academics, get it done at the highest level, workforce development. Now during COVID, it's turned over a little bit, because I would say that now the theme is wellness, safety, and doing your best. And it's important, I believe, that you know that your best is enough. Whether you're a student or parents or staff, everybody's handling so many different challenges where it's not important for us to talk about, every single time, because we all know that there's so many things going on. But it's important for us to communicate and be transparent with each other that we do have things that are going on. And part of the wellness part is it starts with ourselves and how we check in with ourselves. And I'm going to ask that everyone just pause for a moment, and we'll just take a couple just deep breaths, because you've probably been hustle and bustle all day and we haven't even just stopped and done any breathing. So I'm just going to ask everyone to just stop. Just take a deep breath, inhale, hold it, blow it out. It feels good. And I would encourage, if there's one thing that I mentioned today, I encourage everyone to just pause and take a breath from time to time. So just the breathing, right? So additionally, it starts with ourselves, whether it's, handling the COVID or the fires or cyberbullying. Right now we have, social justice is higher and more discussed more than ever. And it works out that the work that we do in after school and expanded learning is changing the odds for kids. I think together that's our mission, that's our vision. We're here to change the odds for kids. Now, the students that we serve were grant funded. So these grants are set up in this system of support for our students that are most in need, for the support of our districts and families. So we're able to think about how we feel, express that, and learn how to communicate with each other. Now, in the COVID environment, it's more important because a lot of people are home, or we're so uncertain and concerned and worried what's next. How do I wear a mask? Let me make sure it's covering my nose before somebody yells at me. Absolutely. But the wellness part right now is being transparent with your staff, being transparent with your friends and family, and just being honest. Don't fake the fact that you're stressed out and things that are going on. And fortunately, in California, we have this phenomenal system of support where we oftentimes start our meetings at the California Department of Education, at the LA County Office of Education, I'm sure other county offices, and at Think Together, we start a lot of our meetings with the meditation, checking in with ourselves. We're working on our relationships. We have great conversations with the governor's office and our elected and CDE, and that allowed us to support funding. So that, we have folks like Holly Mitchell, our budget chair, that's been fighting, and a lot of our elected know how important it is for us to support our students and families. But the big part right now is to check in with yourselves, be honest, be a little bit lax. Don't say, hey, we need a Zoom meeting in 5 minutes. Give folks a little bit of time and just check in. And I would be remiss to highlight, we had one project where we had a partnership with NASIF, and our students started esports. So now they were at home, but they're able to communicate with one another and to connect with their friends and colleagues and still learn how to argue and communicate and fix things. And the students are saying, oh, I get to fix things and learn how to create change together. So for the future, I'm looking forward to us being more transparent, being more connected with each other, and looking ahead, just doing more advocacy and bringing together our field as a whole so we can increase that trajectory of success for our students, our families, and the districts and communities that we serve.
Excellent. Thank you, Anderson. And you were getting lots of kudos in the chat box for giving everyone a chance to take a minute. So I think you make a really incredible point that grounding cooperation and inclusion of young people really is within staff ourselves, and we have to take care of ourselves in order to create those supportive climates for young people. So I'm going to shift over to Diana Fernandez. So as a youth organizer, what advice would you give us and adults to help young people feel confident, supported, and heard right now?
Thank you, Daniel, for the great question. I think, as Anderson mentioned, it's important to recognize that we're in a whole different playing field right now. Things have changed a lot, and it's not the same as it was before. We're in a time that's unprecedented for everyone. Parents, kids, families, we're all adjusting. And many kids are starting to return back to school, but in my situation, as well as for millions of other kids worldwide, I'm doing online school. And basically what that means is that I have to adapt to a completely new way of learning, while also balancing a part-time job, my activism and organizing, and continuing to live this regular kid life. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a little tough these past few months having to adjust to all these new challenges, but I've figured out ways to overcome it, and I'm hoping that this conversation can not only help other young people out there, but can also help those looking to support them. And I know you're asking me how adults can help young people cope, but I also want to point out that adults can feel overwhelmed right now too. And you're allowed to be scared and nervous and anxious, or whatever it is you're feeling right now, because like I said, this is a situation that's completely new for everyone. I live family of essential workers where days off aren't necessarily a given. And both my dad and I contracted COVID-19 earlier in the summer. We're not sure how, but luckily we weren't harshly affected and we overcame it. But I don't know what we would have done if my dad had to take time off or if I got behind in school. But luckily our situation was not as bad as other people are dealing with right now. Everyone's situation is different, and I know that there are people out there that are dealing with the loss of a loved one or are trying their best to overcome this virus. My parents and I are trying our best to help each other out and to be conscious of our situation. It's hard sometimes and doesn't always feel like we're speaking the same language, but at the end of the day, we both have a lot on our plate. I don't have a minute of free time throughout the week, but they do everything that they can to adjust to that. So in a situation like mine, I think the best thing that adults can offer young people is support and reassurance. It makes me feel like I can get through this year when I feel like my parents and the adults around me in my support group, I like to call it, believe in what I'm doing. I want to know whether it's worth putting myself through the struggle and filling up my time with, school and extracurriculars and all these other things that I'm doing. But if they're giving me support and reassurance, and I literally mean saying everything is going to be okay, or we're going to get through this, your time and effort is valuable and it'll be worth it in the end. These small things like push me and drive me to continuing to achieve my goals. And it's easy to feel down and to lose hope and lose motivation in times like this, but having the support group that I like to talk about, like building a support group in your community with your loved one, the adults around you, it's so important. And for adults, like, you need to recognize that there's a lot of things that can happen behind closed doors. You don't always know, everyone's situation. You don't always know what everyone's doing. So, ask young people how they're doing. Ask how they are, what you can do to help them, instead of just piling on more struggles, responsibilities, and tasks, because it can get overwhelming. It can get tiring. And ultimately, we want to support and uplift these youth voices, right?
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think almost 600 people signed up for today's panel. I think it's so powerful to have a young person tell you that it's okay to be struggling right now, and that we're all in this together. So thank you for giving us some assurance and reassurance and confidence.
That was amazing to hear.
So I'm going to pivot over to Kiara for our last question. So Kiara, and there was a recent America's Promise Alliance report on the state of young people during COVID-19, and it talks about how disconnected young people are feeling. So can you tell us a little bit about that research and maybe a resource or two that folks can check out?
Yeah, totally. So at America's Promise Alliance, in the beginning of the pandemic, we surveyed over 3,000 high school students. For us, that's ages 13 to 19. And we really just wanted to see what they were feeling, what they were thinking about during this pandemic. Because I think oftentimes, as Diana was saying, is we as adults get overwhelmed and we forget that young people have feelings, emotions, things that are happening outside of what they choose to share with us and the things that we do know about. And what I always try to remind myself of is thinking about my high school self. How would I have been in the middle of a pandemic when it came to regulating my emotions and things like that? Because as an adult, I struggle in that during these times. And so this survey, sorry, 1 second. I live near the Pentagon, so. So with the survey, one of the main things that I found to be really interesting, we surveyed young people that lived in the cities, the suburbs, towns, and rural areas. And oftentimes, we as adults during this COVID-19 conversation with young people, we keep talking about, like, well, what do they think about schools reopening? How are they feeling like in this virtual learning space? How is learning? First of all, as an adult, the 8 hours a day at the computer are a struggle. And for young people, the majority of our school districts are doing anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day. And that is from kindergarten through high school. And there's this expectation that they're kind of going through these spaces and they're supposed to sit at this computer and life is going as normal. And in reality, that's not true for the young people and for the teachers. For a lot of our teachers, they are parents also, and just everyone has this life happening in the midst of all of this. And so a lot of young people pretty much said that, hey, I'm not really thinking about school right now. I am worried if my family will be able to financially survive COVID. Will my parents or myself get COVID? A lot of our young people either lost their part-time jobs or their parents lost their jobs due to the pandemic. And so that is where a lot of their stress and worry has been coming from. And then one of the things that we found also really interesting is for a lot of these young people, they aren't getting that social connection that they need. And I think sometimes I'll say as an adult, I think like, oh, they'll be okay. They have like smartphones or they have social media. They're getting that connection. But in reality, in order for young people to grow up and to be healthy and to be able to function and contribute to society in a healthy way, they need those relationships. And that goes back to that social emotional piece. And because of this pandemic, they're going into these Zoom classes. The classes are being set up for them to get in right when it starts and right when it's over. And the only way that they're connecting is if they have like their friends' phone numbers or things like that. But also remembering is like internet access is a privilege. Cell phones are a privilege. And even when we think about like school districts giving out computers and different things like that, a lot of those computers or tablets have limits as to what they can do on them. And so really trying to be intentional about how, as adults and caring adults, are we creating spaces for young people to feel, one, welcomed, that's not about us, and then also giving them the space to have genuine conversation and connection with other young people about what's happening. And so we at America's Promise Alliance, one of the main things we've been trying to focus on is being a caring adult. I was in a meeting last weekend and one of my coworkers pretty much said like, hey, we need to remind adults that being caring adults is cool. And that's what you sometimes have to remember. Who did you or who did you not have as a kid? And how do you do that for other young people, even if you don't have children, nieces, nephews? There's some young person in your life, and how are you checking on them? Are you asking them about their day? Are you asking them about what their thoughts are around the election? Just because someone can't vote doesn't mean that they don't have opinions. That doesn't mean that they're not sharing those opinions with their parents or other family members. And so really understanding that social value that young people bring to the table. And as adults, making sure that we are checking ourselves, checking our adultism and everything at the door when we're talking to these young people, and really holding space for them to have meaningful conversations. And so some really great resources for this to wrap it up. America's Promise Alliance, you can check out that survey that we did, and we have a really cool graphic that our team worked on our website. And then also at America's Promise Alliance, we do a ton of research around what's happening. We've had some really cool panels, town halls, and things. And it was a lot of our research is talking about like how adults interact with young people. But one of the really cool parts about the research that we do is we are really talking to young people about what is happening. So I think in the chat, the website was included. And then also on our website, we just have some really awesome resources of other organizations that we work with. And you all should check it out. And also on our social media account, our social media team does an awesome job of sharing quick snippets through the day to center all of us and remind us about why we do this work and why it's so important.
Thank you so much, Kiera. Wow, so powerful, and I'm so grateful for the work that America's Promise Alliance does, and I'm glad to be connected with you so that you can infuse so many of America's Promise Alliance partners with youth voice that you get to see and absorb on a daily basis. So we're almost out of time, so I want to put a closing reflection out to the audience, and you can put this into the chat box. What's one thing you heard today that resonated with you? So audience, panelists, anyone can write into the chat box one thing you heard today that resonated with you. You can also tweet that to Healthier Generation. We'll put the handle in the chat box. My email has been put in the chat box as well. If you have questions or want to get connected or have a great story you want to share, if you have an idea for another digital event or have a speaker, someone that you know of that should be featured, would love for you to reach out. So thank you all. I really appreciate seeing all of the comments come up in the chat box. And so again, this session will be recorded so you can go back and watch it. You can share it with others. And we really hope that you've had an inspiring time today. Huge thank you to Kiera, Anderson, and Diana, and Malcolm Many thanks to Kohl's for their support in bringing this type of event to life. Don't forget, you can find more resources at healthiergeneration.org if you're interested in digging more into our Healthy at Home campaign and that collection of resources. So thank you for spending time with us today. It's been a pleasure. Reach out anytime if you have questions or want to get connected or share an idea. So with that, I'll say thank you to the panelists and Malcolm, and when we'll wrap up, but look forward to connecting with you all in the future. So thank you all.
Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.